The ideas of predestination and free will are one of the most interesting theological discussions Christians have had and still have to this day. In this video, I am going to present the differences between Calvinism and Arminianism, as well as their history. Keep in mind that Calvinism and Arminianism isn't an issue of salvation. If Arminianism is right, you can be a Calvinist that can be saved. If Calvinism is right, you can be an Arminian that is saved. It's not an issue of salvation, and they aren't the only views on the correlation between predestination and free will. However, they're the only views that we'll be going through today. Calvinism. Calvinism is a doctrine derived from the Protestant reformer John Calvin that focuses on God's sovereignty and the election of those he predestined to be saved. His theology was heavily influenced by church father St. Augustine of Hippo, who to this day is still considered one of the greatest theologians and Christian figures in all of church history. Calvin was very influential in the Reformation, usually seen as the second most important reformer aside from Martin Luther, with some people placing him even higher. The name Calvinist wasn't and still isn't particularly liked by those who believe in Calvin's views of predestination, and they prefer to be regarded as Reformed or those who uphold to the theologies of grace. Calvinism was vindicated by the Synod of Dort in the 17th century, which rejected Arminianism. While Calvinists have many confessions, the most widely known ones are the Westminster's Confession of Faith and the Second London Baptist Confession of Faith for Reformed Baptists. Arminianism. Arminianism is a doctrine that came from Jacob Arminius, and it puts an emphasis on how humanity's free will affects things. Arminius disagreed with theologies of Calvinism, disagreeing even with his own teacher, Theodore Beza. Arminius' theology of Arminianism has been very influential to modern Christianity, being prominent in the Methodist and Pentecostal Church, as well as a majority of Baptist churches. Their main confession is the Remonstrants Confession of 1610. The 5 points of Calvinism. Now that we've looked to the history and a bit of background for both of these doctrines, let's look into each doctrine and what they state. First up, we have the 5 points of Calvinism. Calvinism includes many complex theologies and doctrines, but it can be pretty much boiled down to 5 points, best seen by the acronym TULIP. TULIP stands for total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. Total depravity is a theology that states that humanity is corrupted by original sin in every aspect, making it so that humans' free will is always inclined towards sin, making it impossible for a human in his or her own free will to choose God. Unconditional election, which is at the heart of Calvinism, states that God actively elects those he predestines to save, not based on their merit, but purely upon his grace. Unconditional election is tied with total depravity, as without God's grace being the only factor in one's salvation, under the assumption of total depravity, no one would be saved. The third point of Calvinism is limited atonement. Limited atonement is the most controversial of the 5 points of Calvinism, as it states that the death of Christ, while being sufficient for all, is only efficient for the elect. This means that while Christ's death is capable of saving anyone, its purpose was only for the elect, and its saving capabilities are only used by those God elected to save. Irresistible grace is the idea that those who God predestines his grace towards are inevitably going to accept it. This means that those in the elect won't want to reject God's gift of salvation. The final point of Calvinism is perseverance of the saints. This is the belief that those who are part of the elect will not commit apostasy. They can have doubts or sins or even commit non-permanent apostasy and still be saved if, at the end of their life, they are a follower of Christ. Now that we've looked into Calvinism, let's look at Arminianism. Arminianism, like Calvinism, is a very complex theology that, however, can also be presented in 5 points. Keep in mind, however, that Arminianism has different factions with slightly differing beliefs, in the same way how Calvinists also have hyper-Calvinists, who we will not be discussing in this particular video. So while I will present some of the other views that could also be believed by some Arminian Christians, They are not from Arminius himself, but worth noting. Arminius believed in total depravity, just with a different view on how God's grace relates to it, which we will get to later. However, many Arminians believe in tainted depravity, which is the belief that while humans are inclined towards sin, it's not to the extent in which they are incapable of choosing God. Arminians also believe in conditional election, which states that people are elected based on God's foreknowledge of their belief in Him and acceptance of His gift of salvation. Next, Arminians believe in unlimited atonement, which is that the purpose of Christ's death was to present an opportunity of salvation to all, though not all will be saved. The fourth point of Arminianism is resistible grace. This states that God gives His grace to all people, but not all will accept this grace. The final aspect of Arminianism is conditional security. Conditional security states that those who were truly saved are capable of committing apostasy. Some Arminians believe in eternal security. However, this view was not held by Arminius. One of the worst parts of the debates between Arminianism and Calvinism is the fact that there are loud people online who are either both encampments, and all they do is just strawman the heck out of the other position. So I'd like to quickly address these strawmans. The first one is segregating the two to full predestination and full free will for Calvinism and Arminianism, respectively. Both positions are far more complex and hold to the fact that God is ultimately sovereign while humans have complete free will. As for some more strawmen against Calvinists specifically, Calvinism doesn't state you need to do good works and never have low faith to know you are in the left. While those things can be evidence of your salvation, all Calvinists are claiming is that those who are truly saved won't be apostate by the end of their life. As for Arminian strawmen, Arminians don't believe in semi-Pelagianism, which states that grace is not needed. Rather, Arminians believe that grace brings one to the ability of making a choice. Finally, a strawman that I see from both of those who don't fall under either encampment is that these doctrines are trying to explain the unexplainable. It's just certain aspects of these different things that they try to articulate, not the entirety of the relationship between God's sovereignty and humanity's free will. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing if you were predestined to do so. While there are many views that I didn't go into, like 3-point Calvinists, hyper-Calvinists, and 2-point Arminians. Maybe some other time. I just wanted to focus on these two, and I encourage discourse in the comments about these doctrines. Just try to keep it civil. Don't tear each other's throats out. As for me, what am I? Well, I haven't looked too far into both of them, so I can't make it a definitive answer, but right now I'm leaning towards Calvinism, at least 3-point Calvinism. For me, that just has more evidence behind it. However, I haven't fully looked into the Arminian positions, so I can't make a definitive answer on either one. Anyways, have a nice day. I should end the video now. Bye. God bless.